And hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Rich Sports Talk. We are previewing the New York Jets and the New England Patriots this upcoming weekend, week 7. This is the first time I'm doing this preview, and I would love to get your feedback. Do you want me to do more previews like this every week? Make sure to comment below if you have anything you'd like to get in the chat. Any questions for me about the Jets or the matchup this weekend? Please put in the chat. I will get right into that. So, big week for the New York Jets, traveling to Foxborough for round 2 versus the New England Patriots this year. And the Jets are certainly hoping, at least from an offensive standpoint, it goes a lot better this time. Zach Wilson, of course, 4 interceptions, the first matchup against New England. But the good news is the Jets have some advantages going into this matchup. And it's kind of funny because when I was doing my scheduling and my previewing the Jets win and loss record, I said this was likely the game that they're going to beat the Patriots this year. This was going to be the game to do it because there was a couple things that played into this game that really helped the Jets that not a lot of people talk about. The first is having the bye before, getting extra time to prepare for the Patriots, getting extra time to rest up. Looks like Marcus May is going to be able to play in this game. CJ Mosley, likely a game time decision. But the other big thing that helps the Jets too is the Patriots played an overtime game against the Cowboys last week, a lot of snaps, especially on that defense. So that defense could be tired. This could be maybe a little bit of a look ahead game for the Patriots, although we do know Bill Belichick loves to screw with the Jets. But there's so much to get into this game. I'm going to start with the defense because I'm just going to touch on them briefly because the big thing is the offense. It's always going to be the offense. It's going to be Zach Wilson. It's going to be how this offense is going to perform. I mean, that's the big thing this whole season. If you want to talk more about the defense, put in the chat if there's any questions you have about the defense. But I'm going to start off with this, which is, to me, this is a great week for the defense because their biggest problem late in the games, and I know they've been getting criticism from not finishing the games, the Tennessee game, the Atlanta game in London. But when your defense is playing over 40 minutes and 2/3 of the snaps in a game, they're going to get tired. And for me, their pass rush right now is getting a big advantage because they got a break. They got a freaking break, unlike the last couple of weeks. Like they've just been gassed at the end of the football game. So I think this is a good time for the Jets and their pass rush because they did a very good job against the Patriots in week 1. They're well rested. Now, the big question is going to be CJ Mosley. He's been an impact player on this defense all year. But the good news is, even though he might be out, Marcus May returns to the secondary, gives that safety position some stability with Ashton Davis back there. And I know Marcus May and his agent are going to be happy because, yes, he will be back before the trade deadline. And there's so much to get into that. I mean, I did a whole episode about why I think May could get traded. But the more this has gone on, I don't think he is going to be traded this year. But looking at the defense, I think this is a good matchup for them because now you have a little bit more film on Mac Jones. And really, in the first matchup, this defense did not get killed by Mac Jones. They got killed by the turnovers from this offense and being put in bad situations on the field. So I think that for this Jet team, it is a good thing that they had the bye week. They're fresh, they're ready to go. They get some good film on Mac Jones. And really, this offense does not scare me. Now, the biggest problem for the Jets will be containing the tight ends. They've always had issues with tight ends. That's going to be the big key for this Jet defense is controlling the tight ends. But the Patriots, they don't have any guys that I worry about taking the ball and taking the top off the defense that really can stretch the field. And even last week, the big play Mac Jones made, it was because of the corner jumping up trying to make a pick and missing the football that led to that big Cowboy touchdown last week. And I do think Mac Jones, you can get after him. This Patriot offensive line has not been great this year. So I think this is actually a good matchup for the Jets defense. But let's get to the big elephant in the room. The big question, how's this offense going to do? Because we know Bill Belichick is great. He is elite at stopping young signal callers. And we saw it in week 2. First 2 plays of the game, Zach Wilson intercepted. And Bill Belichick and their defense, what they are going to try to do is take away your best option. We saw that in week 2. That was Corey Davis, whether it was double coverage, Shane the coverage to his side. And we saw Wilson was really trying to force the ball to Corey Davis, which led to the interceptions. One big thing that will help this matchup will be Jameson Crowder, because Crowder has become Zach Wilson's security blanket underneath. He's become that reliable underneath guy he can check it down to. He did not have Crowder in that game. Crowder has been very good and very helpful for Wilson over these last 2 weeks since coming back off the IL. So it's very important that he's back. But the big thing for the Jets, to me, to help Zach Wilson is running the football. Because the best game that they've had running the football was against the Patriots. And this Patriot defense is very good stopping the pass. They have struggled in the run game. And if I'm the Jets, I'm not just running the ball, just handing it off to Tevin Coleman or Michael Carter. I'm being creative, because this team, they need to figure out how to get the ball into Elijah Moore's hands. He's a playmaker. And when they drafted him, I really believed he was going to be the Deebo Samuel of this team. He was going to be the guy that you'd see them utilize a lot in the run game, where you'd see with jet sweeps, you see him running up in the backfield as a running back. I want to see more of that this week, especially with Crowder taking a lot of the snaps in the slot away from Elijah Moore. And with this Jet offense, you saw it, like Elijah Vera Tucker really doing a good job in the run blocking game. I know they don't have Mckay Beckton still, but this offensive line, they played really well against the Patriots. They were able to control the line of scrimmage and run the football. And it was getting aggravating in that game, because as the Jets got further behind, the game script obviously changed. But you were seeing, like, in the first quarter or two, they were just ripping off 5 yards. It seemed like every single play they were running the football. And if I'm the Jets, look at what the Cowboys did last week. And I know the Cowboys have a better offense. I know they got more dynamic running backs. I know they have a better offensive line. But when the Cowboys wanted to run the football, they ran it at will last week. So if I'm the Jets, I'm really making an effort to run the football, get after it, and making sure to establish the run game, because that will open up the play action passing game for Zach Wilson. That will open up the bootlegs. But the big thing for Zach Wilson, and the thing that you hope he worked on, especially during this bye week and this time, was going for the layups. We know he can hit the home run shot. We know he can make the 50-yard play down the field. But we saw in the Falcons game, Jets were trying to make it easier for him, set some screens, and a couple, like, if they hit, they could have been touchdowns. But Zach Wilson missing easy throws, and especially against this Patriot defense, where you're not going to get a lot of gimmies. You're not going to get a lot of easy throws. If they're there, he has to hit them. And I know it's a bit boring football, but there are defenses you can get away with pushing the ball down the field. You can do that against the Tennessee. You can do that maybe against Atlanta. But with this cornerback and safety group in New England, you don't want to be pushing the football down the field. Now, I'm not saying don't take shots in this game. I'm not saying don't push the ball down the field. But you can't just be throwing it up there and hoping for the best. You can't just be hoping for 50-50 balls on every other play. So if you are the Jets, I say take shots, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that they're going to be looking for the ball in the air. They're very good at taking the football away. And if the Jets can establish the running game and get into short and manageable situations, that's really going to help Zach Wilson. And, you know, it was funny because they were asking about LaFleur today in the press conference. He was saying that they script the first 24 plays of the game. You hear Corey Davis saying all the right things. They came back with a good attitude, because this Jet offense, their biggest problem is they got to get going in the first half. And I think I speak for all Jet fans is we're looking for progress this season. And if the biggest thing we want to see in this game is seeing this offense come out and looking like they have a game plan, looking like they're able to get a couple of drives going. It just can't be like last week where it was just 2-3 and outs right off the bat and only 6 plays in the first quarter. I mean, the Jets defense cannot do that. They have to be consistent. They have to be able to move the football. They have to be able to establish long drives, not only just to get something going in momentum, but to keep their defense fresh. So if you're the Jets, like you got to have a great game plan coming in. You can't just expect to come back in the second half. You need to establish a good game going forward. And I understand they have a rookie offensive coordinator, a rookie play caller, a rookie head coach. They have to basically establish themselves in this league, but they have to make these adjustments. They have to be able to go out there and they have to be able to execute. Nothing has driven us crazier as Jet fans this year than seeing this offense not being able to do anything and looking completely lost and looking like an Adam Gase. Yes, I said it. Adam Gase like offense. Don't worry, I won't say the name again. He's like Beetlejuice. You say it 3 times and he'll miraculously come back to the NFL. Don't worry, I won't do that to you guys. I don't want Adam Gase back in this league either. So for the Jets, like I said, have to establish the run game early, but they need to get the ball into their playmakers and be creative. Through the first 5 games, we haven't seen a lot of trick plays. Now, I'm not a huge fan of trick plays, but when your offense isn't doing anything, you got to try something. They need to get the ball to Elijah Moore in space, and we haven't really seen them be able to do that, but he's a guy that when you get the ball to him in space, good things happen. And they need to do like what the Giants did with Kadarius Toney. They have been getting him the ball in space, and you look at the situation where he's basically getting the ball, being able to find the open space, and being able to go out there and make plays. And thank you. I will make sure to adjust the volume. 1 second. Let me just make sure that I know this microphone needs a little work right now, but let's see if that helps a little bit. Yeah, I apologize about the audio. We will make sure to fix that next time, but I will make sure to try to fix that because I know we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with that. But yeah, I just think right now, if you're the New York Jets, like you have to be able to go out there and you have to make sure that you are establishing the run game, you're establishing easy passes there for your young quarterback. And, it's definitely going to be a very interesting game. I do think that this is going to be a close game. And really, it should have been a close game, the last matchup between these two teams, because if you really look at it, it's something where if the Jets didn't turn the ball over 4 times in that football game, I mean, that's a game. It's competitive. And unfortunately for the Jets, they just couldn't take advantage of it. They had a short field, and, it was just a frustrating watch just altogether. So, but yes, if you have any questions about the game, make sure to put that in the chat. I'll make sure to get to those questions as soon as possible. I see that we have some talk in the chat. Yes, I know the volume. We're trying to fix that right now. I don't know what's happening with the volume on our end, but I'll make sure to have that fixed for the next one. But to me, I think this is going to be a close game. And the big thing I think what Jet fans want to see too is having Zach Wilson when he goes out there is to make sure that he is comfortable, that he doesn't make the big mistakes. Because as Jet fans, you don't want to see another game where he is struggling, where he is not playing well, where he looks overmatched. And to me, this is a great opportunity for him to really make a statement, because we saw what happened the first time against this team, what happened against the Patriots. It was 4 interceptions. It was ugly. I think we all know that. But if you're Zach Wilson and you come out and you play a good game, he doesn't have to play a great game. He just has to play a smart game. He just cannot be turning the football over constantly and making sure to make the smart plays and making sure that he is doing everything with the football so that he is not trying to force things down the field. And look, I love seeing him play hero ball. I think it's exciting. But in this game, this is the one team or one of the few teams in the NFL where you can't play hero ball and you can't just be chucking it up there and hoping that plays come. And for this offense, I hope that they've drilled that into Wilson. We know he has a great arm. We know he can drop it 50 yards into the bucket, but you need him to see him make the smart throws, go through his progressions, and just move the football. Oh, here we go. Good question from Solomon Jet 718. Which wide receiver has a higher chance of getting traded before the trade deadline? If you want to talk about the trade deadline, guys, I would love to talk about that. I have an episode, if you go through the channel, about my top 5 Jets to be likely traded at the deadline, and that included Jameson Crowder. And I actually got a lot of feedback from you guys about that, where some of you were saying that you believed he was the leader of this offense. You didn't really want to see him traded. And like I said earlier in this video, he's been a great security blanket for Zach Wilson. So why would the Jets trade him? To me, there's 2 very important reasons why you trade Jameson Crowder. The first is the contract situation. And when you go back, the Jets, they renegotiated his contract, but it wasn't like they were just saying, hey, we're dying to have you back. It was, hey, we'll have you back if you redo your contract, you take a little less money to play with us. And the other big thing is Elijah Moore. When Elijah Moore was brought into this team, I believe that Jameson Crowder was gone. Because when you looked at where he played in college, 95% of his snaps were from the slot. And he is a dynamic playmaker. And unfortunately for the Jets, I think what they've been trying to do is they know Moore is one of their best receivers, but they're putting him out wide. And one of the reasons for his struggles early is because he's really out of position and not playing a key position. And when I look at the whole Elijah Moore situation, my thought is move him to the slot. And if you're going to put a receiver outside, put Denzel Mims. Yes, play Denzel Mims. I mean, that's another thing I should have mentioned. Play Denzel Mims in this game. But I think Jet fans, this is, part of the course. Play Denzel Mims, and we'll see him play 5 snaps this weekend. But getting back to Crowder, you will see, I think you'll see him be traded because his contract's up at the end of the season. I do not believe he will be back just because of the gut of slot receivers. They have Elijah Moore, they have Braxton Berrios, who they like, and Berrios also gives them the option because he can be a kick and punt returner. So with Crowder, I just see him gone by the end of the season because I just think that the Jets could get something, maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick from a team that needs another slot receiver. And there's a lot of teams out there that are really going for it this year. Like, could Arizona want a slot receiver with some experience from Kyler Murray? Could the Packers, a team that really, I think Jameson Crowder would be a great fit in the slot for them. I mean, there's a lot of teams that could use a valuable slot receiver like Jameson Crowder as a good third option on a great team. So I think Crowder would not only get you the most value, but it opens up more playing time for younger guys and guys that are like this team. So for the question, it's Jameson Crowder. I don't see this team trading Mims. From everything I've gathered, talking to people, Joe Douglas still loves Mims. They like Mims. I don't know if it's something with the coaching staff. I believe Douglas is going to give them basically an ultimatum. But the other thing, too, is you're not going to trade Mims and get nothing back for him. At least with Chris Herndon, you got value. You got a 4th round pick, which is where you picked him in the draft. If you were to trade Denzel Mims now, you're maybe getting a 7th round pick. And it's not smart business to draft a guy in the 2nd round and then not even 3 years later trade him in the 7th round. So, like you said, I believe Jameson Crowder is going to be gone. If you have any other trade ones, like guys I think the Jets should target, ask me that question. If there's anything you want to ask me else about the trade deadline, definitely go for it. Yeah, I do think reading Eric Seaby's comment, 2 things that must happen: avoiding another slow start and getting Mims on the field more. Absolutely. And for Mims, I've been a proponent of using him almost as a hybrid tight end, which is using him a bit more in the slot and trying to send him up the middle of the field just because he'd be a hard mismatch there. And really, this team doesn't have a dynamic tight end. And it drives me nuts when I see Ryan Griffin lined up in the slot or the tight ends lining up for pass plays. Like, put Denzel Mims in there. He runs a 4.3. He's 6'2, 6'3. He can stretch the field, and it gives them another big body. And for Zach Wilson, if he's going to play hero ball and throw the ball up for 50-50 catches, you throw it up to Corey Davis and you throw it up to Denzel Mims. Those are the two guys on this team that can do that. They're the two guys on this team that you say, hey, I'm going to throw it up. You better go get it. They're two of those guys that can do that. Justin Jets, how many wins do you think it will take to make a wild card this year? Justin, they're not going to make the wild card this year. You just look at the AFC is loaded now with young quarterbacks. I mean, the way I'm looking at it right now, the AFC West likely going to have 3 playoff teams. I think the Chiefs are going to get their stuff together, but the Raiders are good. The Chargers are good. The AFC South is a mess, but the AFC North are likely going to have the Browns. You're likely going to have the Ravens coming out of the division, and who knows? I just think the way this team is constructed right now, you're hoping for 5 to 6 wins just because they're a young football team. It's a new head coach. It's a new offense. It's a young quarterback. And unfortunately for this team, I don't think they're going to be buyers at the deadline. Now, if they can get a good receiver for a good price, if they can get a good tight end for the right price or a running back even, I do think Joe Douglas would consider it. But seeing that they have a lot of guys on this team that they could maybe move off of, it just makes a lot more sense. And unfortunately, the Jets, their schedule's brutal. I mean, they haven't even played the Bills yet. And the Bills, they look like if they're not the best team in the AFC, they're one of the top 2 teams. So the Jets have to play 2 games against them. I do think the Jets can beat the Bengals next week. I think the Bengals 4-2 record is a bit of a mirage. Their defense isn't that great. And Joe Burrow, my God, like I worry about him because he is taking a beating. And I know Jamar Chase has been an electric player for them, and he's been amazing. But I keep going back to they probably needed to get him offensive line help. So, but if anything for the Jets, we're probably going to be talking a little bit more about the draft. I did a draft video earlier about the top 5 pass rushers that I have in the draft. I've already done quarterbacks. I mean, if you guys want me to start doing mock drafts, I can certainly start doing that for you guys. Or if you want me to do a little bit more draft previews, I love the NFL draft. If you've been following the channel, I do the full 7th round mock drafts once the season is over. So if you want me to talk about guys or players that you think the Jets should target, that could be something I could do. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, and I can definitely get on that. And, I want to make videos for you guys and what you want to talk about for the Jets. Eric also said Mims has made plays in the few times he's been on the field. Absolutely. That's the thing that I think makes this even crazier. If Mims was on the field not making plays, it might make sense. But the few times he's been on the field, he's made plays. And it's because the Jets, they don't have another receiver like this. I mean, Corey Davis is similar to Mims, but Mims is a bit faster. Why he's not lining up on the outside drives me nuts, especially when you have Elijah Moore that you can put in the slot. And I love Moore. I still think Moore is going to be a very good receiver for this team. But the one thing I kept holding on to Mims was I thought that they were just making sure he was fully up to speed. Don't forget he had the food poisoning. He lost a lot of weight in the offseason. Maybe they didn't think he was ready to go. But when you have Mckay Beckton during the London game, basically going out there and saying free Mims, it's crazy. I was wondering, Justin, when this question would come up, how do you feel about the possibility of Watson to rise the Dolphins being a chance? I would be worried, just because Watson is a great quarterback. There's so much to get into this, though, because he's got the legal issues. I almost feel like the Dolphins aren't going to do this. I understand they have the draft capital. I think it's just an enticing story. To me, if there's a team that's really going to go after Deshaun Watson, I do think it's actually going to be the Eagles. And as a Jet fan, I think that's what you're hoping for. And the reason behind that is, where does each team stand? I don't think the Dolphins, it's been a disaster of a year. Let's be honest for them. But I don't think they're in as desperation mode with their fan base and with the fans as the Eagles are. Because you just look at the Eagles, their last 12 months, you had that last game of the season where they basically benched their starting quarterback and looked like they were trying to throw the game. They fired the one coach that they had that got them to a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl. And the reason that they fired him was to keep Carson Wentz and make him happy. Well, then 2 weeks later, they're trading Carson Wentz. Then Jalen Hurts is the starter. And then they hire Nick Sirianni, who's a guy that most people had to go to Wikipedia to find out who he was. No one had even heard of him before. So for me, I believe Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, is on a hotter seat. And while the Eagles don't have as much capital, they still right now have 2 top 10 picks. And they might be saying, look, we don't love the quarterbacks in this class. And I don't think there's really a great one. And Jalen Hurts is what he is. I would not be shocked if the Eagles go and say, look, we will give you the 2 first-round picks we have this year. And I could see them give up 4 first-round picks. And if they do that, it buys them time, because they will have gotten arguably the best quarterback in franchise history in Deshaun Watson. I would be worried, though, about the Dolphins getting him. But it's funny because half the stories you hear that they're interested and then they're out. And Watson's a weird case, because if you're the Dolphins, unless you really feel that there is a team that's going to trade for him before the deadline, I don't see why you would, for 2 reasons. The first reason is your season is pretty much over. You only have 1 win right now. And even if you brought in Watson, he's likely going to be suspended for at minimum 6 games. So he's not helping you this year. So if anything, you wait to the end of the offseason where you have your draft order established, you have your picks established, and you make a decision on Tua. Now, I'm out on Tua, but there could be some of that organization that are still on him. Like, be honest, he played great last week, coming off an injury. If he goes off and plays really well in the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe that will help dampen it. But also, the Texans, to me, they're not going to trade Deshaun Watson unless they get a haul. If you keep waiting till the end of the offseason and the Texans have the number 1 pick in the draft and they know they're going to move on from a quarterback, then you likely also have diminished the value because Deshaun Watson hasn't played in a year and he's still going to be suspended. The suspension, to me, is the big thing. If the NFL comes out this week and says Deshaun Watson isn't going to serve his suspension until next season, then I could see the Dolphins going after him. But you're not going to go after him and give up premier capital for a season that's lost right now. But I would be worried if I was the Jets, because Watson, when he's healthy and on the field, he's one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the NFL, and you don't want to have that in your division. And I believe in Zach Wilson, but with Watson, you expedite that rebuild for the Dolphins. So I would be worried, but also gotta wait, because there's so much about this. And it seems like every time these rumors come up, it starts with Deshaun Watson's going to get traded. And then he doesn't. Then it was, Deshaun Watson's going to get traded. And then he doesn't. And then Deshaun Watson's going to get traded again. And he isn't getting traded. So I just think that right now it's a wait and see. And unfortunately, that's kind of rough. But I live in Houston, and why I hear John McClain is a puppet for the McNairs. I have a feeling the Texans are trying to bait other teams. Absolutely. I that's a great point. And I've also been saying that too. I just don't think they just want to get out from the Deshaun Watson. I just think that they just don't want this to linger and just stay around the organization. To me, that's why I brought up the Eagles, because right now I don't think the Dolphins are as desperate, and members of the front office or as desperate as the Eagles, because the Eagles have not been a good football team. And right now, you look at it and they just look like they're a mess. Their coaching staff has two talented running backs, and for some reason, they won't run the football. And for me, if you're Howie Roseman, you buy yourself time if you get that great quarterback, and it makes your job a little bit easier trying to build around that team. And look, if you bring Deshaun Watson into the NFC East, he's by far and away the best quarterback in that division. I love Dak Prescott, but Deshaun Watson's the best quarterback in that division. And you can sell it to your fans and basically say, look, he's not going to play this year. He's going to get suspended, but he's our quarterback next year. And if you're the Eagles, you play Jalen Hurts, he plays well. There's going to be a team that will give you some draft capital to help you recuperate a little bit. Because, like I said, I've been on this NFL draft. This is going to be a fascinating year for college quarterbacks. It's going to be as talked about and debated as last year. But last year, you had guys that you felt were going to make an impact right away. And I'm looking at this draft class. It's really murky because every week it seems like someone else is jumping up. Someone's going down. Me. If you were to tell people Spencer Rattler was going to get benched 2 months ago, many people thought he was going to be the number one pick in the draft, and he's on the bench right now. So what player do you think is a good representation for Zach Wilson's ceiling based on his start? I would be lying to say I'm still super high. I am too. It's hard because a lot of analysts keep, and I hate this game where we play well, who does he remind you of? And basically when they said, oh, he looks like a Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers, and I know that gets people excited. And then I also hear certain people calling him Johnny Manziel, which I think is an absolutely ridiculous comparison. But I mean, you see the throws, and let me ask you this. Even when we saw Sam play, you never saw throws that Sam made that went, wow. I mean, the biggest plays for Sam and the biggest wow moment was that run last year. He broke off on the Thursday night game against the Broncos and ran for 55 yards. You're like, whoa, I didn't know he can run. And I mean, you're seeing it in Carolina this year, like his legs are almost better than his arm, which is kind of funny. And I just think that he has a very high ceiling, but it's going to be a rough season because he has Denzel Mims, but for whatever reason, they won't play him. But he has guys that can stretch the field. I just think that with this offensive line still in a bit of flux, he doesn't have an elite running game. It's going to be tough. And for Wilson, I think he's going to have to learn that he doesn't have to be the hero. And I get it. There's a lot in his play, and there's times where I said this with Sam last year. I think in their heads, they know if they don't go out and make big plays, the offense isn't going to get anything done. And I do not agree with that. Sam is not better than Zach Wilson. I mean, the last 3 weeks, Sam Darnold has thrown 5 interceptions, and last week he had under 50% completion against the Eagles, who are a bad defense. I mean, you look at, and I said this after 2 weeks, everyone was saying, oh my God, Sam Darnold looks like an MVP. I'm like, well, that's also when he's checking it down to Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey, since his injury, Sam Darnold has not been the same quarterback. And look, Darnold's making great plays, and I'm happy he's doing well, but it's not like Sam Darnold is leading the Panthers, and all of a sudden the Panthers look like they're going to win 12 games this year. I think that the Panthers could sneak in as a wild card, but that's if Christian McCaffrey's healthy. And for me, the Panthers, the reason they're playing so well isn't because of Sam. It's because they have a great young defense. They have a fast defense. And you saw it week 1. And my reaction to that game is either the Jets have a bad offensive line. I still have questions about this offensive line, or this pass rush is going to be very good. And every week we've seen this pass rush. They have a lot of good guys can get to the edge. And Justin, the reason people see a lot in Sam, and I saw it too, is he's a guy that he fits the typical prototypical mold. He's got above average athleticism that when you watch him play, it kind of surprises you. It's like I like to compare a little Daniel Jones. Like you see how well Daniel Jones runs, and you're like, that doesn't look, you would not expect that from him. Darnold, to me, he's got a very good arm. His big thing was he wasn't a natural thrower. I mean, people forget he was a linebacker until late in high school, and then he converted to a quarterback. So he still was kind of learning the position where a guy like Zach Wilson's been a quarterback for most of his life. And really, like, I know we'll always have this debate with Sam and Zach, especially with what will happen with how Zach turns out. But really, I think it was an easy decision for this front office because you only win two ways in the NFL now. If you really want to win a Super Bowl or be a playoff team, you either have a rookie quarterback on a rookie scale who plays well and you can build a great team around him with all the cap space. And to me, the Jets next season is going to be the year that they have to go for the playoffs because they have the all that draft capital, or you have a quarterback that's underpaid, where in the initial beginning, he might be one of the top 5 paid quarterbacks, but over time, that salary comes down a little bit. And when he isn't one of the top 5 quarterbacks, like you look at, there was the great stat like 2 years ago. I think the top 5 paid quarterbacks didn't even make it far in the playoffs. So, just do you think the Jets should pick up a first round O lineman 3 years in a row? Absolutely. Uh, I'm actually going to do this in my mock draft, but it would not shock me because Joe Douglas now has laid out a blueprint. And to me, when I do my mock drafts, my biggest thing is when I do a mock draft, it's not necessarily who I would pick for the team. I say you have to go on tendencies. You have to go on guys. And I love the center from Iowa. He is a man. Like, he is amazing. But here's the other thing, too. I'm blanking on the kid's name from Alabama. I think it's Neil. I know his name, but for some reason I'm drawing a blank. There's a big reason why, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and I'd love your guys' feedback on this as well, which is if they have a top 5 pick and Neil, who's the best left tackle, is in the draft, I would draft him. And people would think, well, you wanted to play right tackle and have 2 great bookends, and yes, that would be very appealing. But there's a little bit of an elephant in the room with the Jets right now, and that's Mckay Beckton. Now, let me say this before you guys jump on and hate me. I love Mckay Beckton. He is incredibly talented. When he is on the field, he's a dominating presence. But that leads to this when he's on the field. After that injury in the Panthers, when I did my recap, I basically brought an interesting question. Should the Jets move him to right tackle long term? Because you cannot have your left tackle, your franchise left tackle, miss significant time. You can't have that. There was a great stat last year, too, where Sam Darnold, despite all of his injuries, played more snaps than Mckay Beckton last year. You cannot have that. And if Neil's there, I would draft him for 2 reasons. Number one, you have great tackles. But number 2, Joe Douglas has ensured himself that, God forbid, Mckay Beckton gets hurt again, he has left tackle. Because you've seen the impact of what it's done to this line, even this year. I mean, I give George Fant a lot of credit. He has played and filled in at left tackle phenomenally. But there was a reason why this team brought in Morgan Moses. It wasn't just to kick him into guard and play him. It was because this team was worried about Mckay Beckton. Go back to training camp. What happened? Jets were not happy because he showed up overweight again. The Jets were also not happy because of the weight. It led to plantar fasciitis in his feet, which is a very lingering injury that doesn't easily go away. Now, Mckay, you would think with the new coaching staff, you would want to come in the best shape and prove that even in your rookie year, that was a narrative that you were overweight. And when you have that narrative for the second year in a row, you get injured in the first week again, you miss a significant amount of the season. If you're Joe Douglas, you cannot go into the 2022 season thinking that Mckay Beckton is without question your left tackle, the future, because you don't know if he's going to make it through 16 or 17 games. So I could see the Jets, I might even be bold and say they might take 2 guys in the first round next year. If they can get a great left tackle, like if Neil's there and they can get the great Iowa center, center, Linderbaum. I mean, that would be incredible because to me, Joe Douglas has said, I can find great secondary players in day 3 of the draft. I can find playmakers in free agency. I can find running backs in day 3 of the draft. You know what I can't find late in the draft is great offensive linemen. You know what I can't find in free agency is great offensive linemen. I don't want to pay premium dollars for a guy like Connor McGovern, who's been very good this year. But the Jets are paying him like he's one of the best centers in football, and he's a good center, but he's not an elite center. So one of the reasons I would move back into right tackle, Justin, is because of this. He's a great run blocker. There's no question. And I wonder if you move him to right tackle where he doesn't have to face the best pass rushers on teams, where he's not going against the best edge rushers, will that help a little bit with the wear and tear? I mean, we know he's an elite run blocker. He's been decent in pass block, but he's known, like, all of his highlight videos of him pancaking people on running plays. So, and for Beckton, he can be a great tackle. I'm not questioning that. I just believe that with him at right tackle, you want to have your left tackle figured out. So when Zach Wilson comes into camp next year, when Robert Saleh comes into camp next year, they knew who's going to be the left tackle, barring something crazy for 16, 17 games. And even if Beckton comes back and he plays at an all-pro level and he plays great at left tackle the rest of this year, you're still going to have him missing for 2 years in a row significant time. And when have you ever seen a player in the NFL that's had injury issues that all of a sudden miraculously gets healthy later on in his career? That doesn't usually happen. So, Justin Jets, do you think Corey Davis can be a true number 1 for us? If not, I feel like it makes it hard to play Mims because we need a true number 1, then move Davis to 2. I think Davis is more of a great 2. On this team, he's clearly the 1. But unfortunately for the Jets, you're not really going to be able to get a 1. The only one you might get is Allen Robertson, but he's not having a great year with the Bears. I don't think the Bears are also going to move him for a cheap price. They're going to want to get as much as they can for him. And it's hard to find great receivers. There's a lot of very good receivers in the NFL, and I think Corey Davis is in that category. But when we talk the best of the best, it is very difficult to find them. And even in this past draft, I mean, the best one so far has been Jamar Chase. But is Jamar Chase that great because he's a great player, or is it because he has a great chemistry already with Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow loves him and is going to keep feeding him the football no matter what? So I think Corey Davis is more of a number 2, but once again, you're not going to see great number 1 receivers go to free agency. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, that trade, I mean, let's face it, that trade was so asinine and got their head coach fired because you don't trade guys like that. You don't trade great players like, no, Justin, I don't want OBJ anywhere near the Jets. No way. Do not want him here. He cannot stay healthy. He cannot stay on the field. I mean, it feels like he can't even go 3 games without an injury. And it looks like he's cleaned up his act a little bit. But do you really want a guy coming in here and demanding the football? And like I said, too, it's a bit crowded in the Jets receiving room. It almost feels like the guy moved Crowder just to allow Elijah Moore to play in the slot and then Denzel Mims. I mean, I don't think Denzel Mims is going to be a great 1, but Denzel Mims could be a very good 2 in this league. He just needs playing time. And I just would not just stay away from OBJ. I know you can get him for dirt cheap, but he can't stay healthy. He's been injury prone. He's been an issue. And you look at Baker Mayfield's stats, his QBR, his touchdown to interception ratio, and his yards per game go up when OBJ isn't on the field. What does that tell you? So I would not, under any circumstance, bring OBJ back. I know OBJ would love to be back in New York, but I, under no circumstances, would bring him back. I mean, if Robert Saleh feels like he can keep him completely in line and that he's not going to be a cancer and you can get him for a seventh, but still, he can't stay healthy. He cannot stay healthy. We first talked about how one of 11 guys outplays on a given play can derail. How much do you think the failure of this offense is on that versus the lack of ability? I think it's a mix of both. I think that this team is coming together, still trying to figure out what they do well, and they don't have a lot of great players, but I also think they need to figure out. They have some good players. They need to figure out get the ball to Denzel Mims and Elijah Moore, get them in space. And don't forget for LaFleur, he's a first-time play caller. I mean, if this was a guy that had play calling experience as an offensive coordinator, I mean, we could be more harder on him, but this is a guy, he's learning on the job. He's learning on the job. Zach Wilson's learning on the job. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. So I think it's a little bit of both. Um, I feel like Corey Davis is going to be a bad choice for us. I don't think Corey Davis is still a very good receiver. And the nice thing is his contract, while big, isn't egregious. And it's really a 2-year contract. So Joe Douglas, like one of the nice things you look about his contracts, they're very front heavy. So if it doesn't work out after a year or two, the Jets can pretty much move on. They're not locked into bad contracts like the CJ Mosley one, where they have to pay. And that's the other thing that frustrates me with Corey Davis having a bunch of drops and Mims can't get on the field. I mean, that drives me nuts too. And that's why I think he needs to play in this game with the Patriots. And I'm glad you guys like this. If you want me to, I can do this format going forward. Like instead of doing my normal videos after game, I can do the breakdown like this and we can talk like this after the game. So after the game Sunday, I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be in Foxborough watching that game live. So the video will be a little bit later, but I'll be able to watch that game live, be able to take notes, be able to watch that. So that should be definitely a good experience. But no, I agree. But we're running a little bit long here. I'm probably going to wrap this up pretty soon. So if you have any other questions you want me to get to about the Jets, the trade deadline, I know the trade deadline's a hot issue. It's kind of funny because one of the big things I said was the Jets should trade CJ Mosley. And a lot of the comments were like, why would you do that? Why would you trade the leader of the defense? And I said it really wasn't necessarily about him. It's more of his contract, because if he's here next year, he's guaranteed $18 million, and that's 8.5% of the salary cap. So you're donating almost a tenth of the entire salary cap to one player that's a middle linebacker. So I think he's getting bad grades just because he does a lot of catches. He's a bit about he's out of position if you watch the tapes sometimes. And really, Mosley, don't forget too, he's still kind of learning because he's used to playing in that 3-4 role. It's a 4-3 role. I think he's a little bit uncomfortable, and that's a good point too. He's going to be 30 years old next year. And really, don't forget too, he's a Mike Maccagnan player. And Joe Douglas has made it clear he's basically purging this roster of Mike Maccagnan players. And that was a signing that even at the time, I love CJ Mosley, the signing, but the money the Jets gave him, I'm like, this could be bad, and it's bad. And yeah, I do think Crowder's going to be on the move. I just see he can get you the most, I feel, of any player on this roster right now. I actually feel he could get you a day 2 pick, a good team that needs a good slot receiver. Mosley's going to be tough because the team's not going to want to give you a lot because of the salary. And May, I actually don't think it's going to get moved at this deadline because he's going to have teams are not going to pay a lot for him because he's going to have the injuries coming off of, which isn't as much, but he's a good safety, but he's not really one of the top 5 safeties. It's a player that if you trade for him, you're likely going to have to resign. But then you also have this suspension looming, so there's a chance you're going to lose him for 4 games. So what team is going to give the Jets a decent draft pick? They're going to basically say, hey, we're going to try to get him for a good price. And I don't think Douglas is going to do that. I think more likely May plays out this season, tries playing well. The Jets franchise tag him in the offseason and trade him in the offseason. I know you don't like OBJ. What about Crowder for OBJ? Uh, I don't think Cleveland would do that trade, especially because Landry for them plays a lot in the slot. He plays the role that Crowder would play. So I just don't really see that trade going through. Could I see them adding Crowder for a draft pick? Maybe, but I don't see them trading OBJ. I just don't get the fascination with OBJ. I mean, he's been hurt. I mean, he's been hurt all the time. It's just crazy. I just want to look up quickly how many games he's played in the last few years. It's not a lot. All right. So, yeah, he played 7 games last year and he's only played 4 games this year. I mean, you look like even in the last year with the Giants, he only played 12 games. So, I just don't trust OBJ to stay healthy. And his big thing was he want a lot of attention. Do you really want him to be back in New York? To me, the biggest thing that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh preaches, they want guys that love football and they love the grind. That's one of the reasons that they really went after Corey Davis was because he loves football. He's an incredibly hard worker. They want a good culture in the locker room. And to me, OBJ doesn't fit that culture. OBJ doesn't strike me as a guy that everything for him is about football. Everything I do is going to be about football. To me, he just doesn't fit the vibe of the locker room. He doesn't fit into what this team's trying to do. And really, the Jets, why would you want that big salary on your books? Wouldn't you rather use that money in free agency next year to maybe try to add a good tight end if there's one in free agency, another pass rusher, maybe a good corner? I mean, there's a lot more money I would want to invest in other positions than in another receiver. So you're going to have that contract with the Corey Davis contract, then you're pretty much locked in a receiver. You can't do anything. You're not going to go out and get a third receiver and pay a ton of money for him. So, but I'm looking forward to the game this weekend. I do think the Jets have a shot. I do think the Jets can play well. I mean, I thought they played well against the Patriots the first time. It's just they kept turning the football over. So if Zach Wilson can play conservative and not turn the football over, they have a good shot. I guess I just want OBJ because I'm hoping and looking for a spark anywhere. LOL. Hearing your explanation, I think you are probably right, and wouldn't be a smart move. And look, I get it. You want a spark, and I get the spark. I get it too. But if you're going to do a trade, try to go out and trade. You're going to make a big move for wide receiver. Try going to the Bears and saying, "We'll give you the second round pick from the Panthers with an additional pick and get Allen Robinson." He's younger. He's been healthier. He's proven that he can be productive. And I just think he could be a true number one. I don't think OBJ is a number one anymore because he's not on the field. And even when he is, he's not playing well. Allen Robinson, I know he's had a bit of a down year, but how much of that is Matt Nagy in this offense, the Bears offense, which just doesn't seem like it can get out of its own way? So if I'm the Jets, I would rather try them to be aggressive and trade draft capital, get like an Allen Robinson or something like that instead of OBJ. Yeah, I just think that this is going to be a big game for them. I think they're going to be competitive. I think you're going to see the pass rush do really well. It's just going to be it comes down to Zach Wilson and this team. They have to play smart and don't give in to the turnovers and try to force plays. Because Mac Jones, I mean, he's shown he can turn the football over. This Jet team, if they can get pressure on him, Quinnen Williams, Franklin Myers, they've had a week to get off. I mean, their pass rush has been explosive this year. I mean, it makes you wonder what would happen if Lawson was healthy. I mean, man, that's one of the frustrating things. You wonder how good this defense could be. And that's going to be interesting, too. If this Jet defense keeps playing like this, Jeff Ulbrich, does he get a head coaching offer? Because, I mean, this Jet defense, like they have really blown away with the expectations this season. And I have to give them a lot of credit. And I have to give the staff a lot of credit. And I know we want to beat the offense and kill the offense, but you also at the same time have to praise the defense and praise what they're doing defensively because it has been nothing short of astounding, especially when you look at where they came from. So I have to give the Jets a lot of credit in the defensive side of the ball, without question. So But this is the last chance for questions. I think the Cowboy. Oh, Kellen Moore. Absolutely, Kellen Moore's going to be a head coach. I would not be surprised if they do what New England did with Josh McDaniels, which is pay him an absorbent amount of money to be the highest paid OC in the league and basically groom him to be the next head coach of Dallas. I would not be shocked if Jerry Jones basically goes to him and like, look, I know you're going to get head coaching offers, but Mike's probably going to play out the contract 1 or 2 more years. We'll probably try to tempt him to move up into the organization, into the higher up position, and I'll let you be the head coach. You're going to be the head coach of the Cowboys. And to me, that would be better for Moore because he's had success with Dak. He knows Dak's going to be his quarterback. He doesn't have to worry about going to a crappy team and trying to figure out that quarterback. And I that's what I think is going to happen. I actually think he's going to be a head coach, but I think it's going to be Dallas. I just don't. He's worked his way up there. He's well liked. He's done a great job with that offense. I mean, to me, I think one of the big coaching candidates is going to be Brian Leftwich this year. Even before Brady, he was doing a lot of great stuff with Jameis Winston. And I think he's going to be a hot candidate, especially if the Buccaneers get back to the Super Bowl again. I mean, there's going to be a lot of head coaching openings too. I mean, Eric Bieniemy, that name comes up every year, but if Kansas City makes it to another Super Bowl, I mean, I don't know how he cannot get a head coaching job. And don't forget, I mean, the Raiders' job's basically open. I mean, they're probably already starting their search right now for their next head coach. So, I mean, the Raiders are already in that arena. And Jacksonville's another team to keep an eye on. I don't know what's going to happen with Urban Meyer. I really don't. I don't think it's going to work. I didn't think it was going to work. But I do laugh too because mainstream media, like everyone's saying, oh, the Jets would be the worst place for Trevor Lawrence to go. They would be a disaster. I don't hear that as much with Trevor Lawrence now, which I find ironic because he's had a head coach that has not even in the span of 8 months brought a tight end out of retirement that used to be a quarterback, hired a strength coach who had problems with racist language in college. And oh, by the way, I mean, we all know what happened, but I mean, we already talked about one tight end, but I think Urban Meyer had an issue with another tight end at his restaurant in Ohio. So, yeah, I mean, I love people killing the Jets saying, oh, Trevor Lawrence, it would have been the worst place for him to go. All right, I guess Jacksonville really looks great right now in that department, right? So, but yeah, got 2 minutes left, guys. Any other questions before we head out? We'll make sure to have the recap Sunday night. I'll do this live too. I want to get your feedback. I'll talk about the game. It'll probably be a little bit later just because of the game, but I'll do live. And it seems like you guys like this format. Let me know in the comments if you'd rather have this than my traditional videos. I do love this interaction with you guys. Really good. I'm picking the Jets to win this one. I'm going to go 23-20. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I think both defenses play well. I think the Jets, if they're smart, run the ball, play the time possession. Really, their biggest problem has been possessing the clock and really milking the clock. So if they can get the run game going and do 6 or 7 minutes drives, I mean, that's the way to do it. And I said when I was doing my schedule, like these next 2 weeks are games I think the Jets can win against the Patriots coming off the bye and also against the Bengals on Halloween. I think where it gets tough is when we get into week 9 when they have to face the Bills and you're like, ooh, okay, that doesn't look too good. I mean, their back half of the schedule is very tough for the Jets. I mean, these are probably 2 of the more winnable games. And look, Patriots haven't looked good. I know some people are like, oh, they could be a dark horse for the playoffs, but I'm like, they have not looked good. I mean, Dallas to me, it was more Dallas screwing up last week and Dallas not converting and Dallas getting hosed by referee calls last week than the Patriots. I mean, Mac Jones, like their big play of the game was a Cowboy mistake. So, I mean, and the way I look at it too is my big thing when I watched the first Jet game was, is this going to be a guy that we're going to fear for the next 10 to 15 years? And really just watching Mac Jones, I'm like, okay, he'll be fine. But I haven't seen a guy I'm like, oh my God, if he gets everything right or if they maximize everything, like this is going to be a long decade with him. I haven't gotten that yet. So I think he's going to be a solid quarterback, but I just don't see him having the ceiling like a Wilson, the ceiling like a Justin Fields, like a Trey Lance. Those guys, if they maximize their potential, they're going to be far and away better than Mac Jones. But once again, it's about the teams and putting the right situations. And really, I think the Jets are still working on doing that. One thing I would like to mention too before we head out is I would actually like to see them add at the deadline. You look at Tampa Bay, they're in such a position where they basically were auditioning OJ Howard last week. They're definitely trying to trade him. If I could get him for like a 4th round pick, I don't think Joe would go 3rd, but if I could get him for a 4th round pick, I would definitely try to bring him in just because it will give a good underneath target and give Zach Wilson a weapon underneath, because the Jets right now have the worst tight ends in football. I don't think that's a debate. And I would like to see him try to add a tight end. I know Zach Ertz didn't really fit because they were looking for younger guys who might not have reached their peak. OJ Howard fits that mold better. And plus Ertz was going to be very expensive. So, hopefully the Jets can get a big win. I think that they'll have a shot, but we'll be back here to talk about it on Sunday night. Hope to see you there. Until next time, this is Rich Sports Talk. See you guys later.